Ever since the tragedy that took place in Newtown, Connecticut last December, the mainstream media has been attempting to get the general population to place the blame of one individual on 100 million responsible, law-abiding gun owners. In this speech, I'm going to attempt to persuade those of you who are on the mainstream media side of the argument into eventually coming to my side of the argument. To do so, I'm going to focus on three main points. One, which will be the shortest of the three, I'm going to talk about what the mainstream media has been saying for the past year or so about gun control, gun crime, and the Second Amendment. For the second point, I'm going to be talking about the statistics you don't hear on TV or in the mainstream media, the statistics that contradict what they say. And three, I'm going to be talking about why it would be in your best interest to not take everything the mainstream media says is fact just because they're on TV. Regardless of your stance on the Second Amendment and gun control, this is still an issue about Americans. It's an issue about the Constitution, so it is important to all of you watching because you're all Americans. So without further ado, my first point is going to be about what the mainstream media has been saying. They've been telling us for months on end now that gun control will mean less crime. Less guns, less crime. Better background checks means criminals will not be able to get guns. Things of that nature. Now, when they say this, they never really cite sources on the news. They never really tell us exactly why. Yes, it sounds logical. It sounds logical that less guns would equal less crime. But in reality, when you look at the sources and the statistics, which I'll get to right now, it's just not the case. John Moore did a study called "Does Gun Control Reduce Crime or Does Crime Increase Gun Control?" Now, what he means by that is we're told on TV, now that TV and the internet is such a big part of culture, shootings get reported on more often, of course, because in the blink of an eye, you can instantly look something up on TV, the news can get it to the population quicker. So it seems like there's more mass shootings. It seems like in this day and age there's more gun crime, but there's really not. The gun crime rate is lower now than it has been in over 20 years. It just seems like it's higher because of the internet, the access to the internet. But he says, and many other studies have shown this as well, that it's not the availability of guns that increases crime. It's the abundance of people in poverty, mainly minorities such as Hispanics and African Americans. It sounds racist, but it's not. Facts aren't racist. It's the abundance of high school dropouts, because with those, obviously they're not the brightest, so they will resort to crime to get money, because if you drop out of high school, you're not going to be able to get a good job for the most part. So they resort to crime and they stay in poverty. It just cycles. He also found in his study that the higher the per capita income, the lower the crime. So that means for most people who are watching this, who live in middle class neighborhoods, upper middle class, there's less crime, which is true. You know, most of the crime takes place in urban areas, such as Chicago. That's the gun crime capital of the country, even though they have the most gun control. Now, we're told that the majority of the United States wants expanded background checks, wants gun control, wants an assault rifle ban, assault weapons ban, as they say. But Steve Nelson, in his article, shows that 62% say they want Congress to just move on. Gun control isn't a big issue. Also in his article, he says that none of the gun control bills that were proposed by people like Dianne Feinstein passed in the Senate or the House. Some of them didn't even get past the House. So if 90% of the country wants these so badly, why didn't one single bill get passed after the tragedy? If something as horrific as 26 children dying because of a gun didn't manage to persuade the majority of the country, I don't know why they think we're supposed to believe that 90% of us want gun control. Obama says 90% are in favor of background checks, like I stated a couple times now. But Eric Prats, in his 2013 article called "The Math Doesn't Add Up for Gun Control," his poll shows that less than 5% support the expanded background check. So that completely obliterates what Obama said. Really, where Obama got this statistic from was a phone call, a phone survey where they called like 1,000 people or something like that. But they didn't say, "Are you in favor of gun control?" They said, "Are you in favor of background checks?" And at the time, right after Newtown, 90% said yes. But now it's much lower, and the way the survey was worded, there was no way to get an accurate example of that. Now, not only that, but in the same article, there was a poll that showed by a margin of 48 to 38%, Americans think that more gun control, universal background checks, expanded background checks will eventually lead to gun confiscation. That brings me to my solution to this whole really taking what the media says with a grain of salt. My solution, as I said, is going to be to do your own research on everything you hear in the mainstream media. For instance, in the wake of Hurricane Katrina, in the aftermath actually, the National Guard, our military, our police officers stormed in people's houses and confiscated their guns. The people in New Orleans where the hurricane hit. This was never reported on in the mainstream media because, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion, our government wants an uninformed populace. An uninformed populace with people who will believe whatever the media says, like the majority of Americans, they won't be a threat, you know? And that brings me to another article. I've known about this for a while, but I'm sure a lot of you do not. William Jasper has an article called "Do You Fit the Terrorist Profile?" This is from 2009. In this article, it states sources and cites everything correctly, that the government may consider you a domestic terrorist. I'm probably on the list, to be honest, and here's why they might consider me one. I'm outspoken about politics. I'm not for gun control. I'm not politically correct. Things like that are listed in the article. There's a whole list of them that shows certain aspects of your personality that might make the government think you're a domestic terrorist. And couple that with the NSA thing finally coming out that we're being spied on, which conspiracy theorists have been talking about for years. It's just more and more things that would be considered conspiracy theories are coming true. So why would you trust the government on gun control? Why would you think it's for your best interest? They say spying on us is in our best interest, when that's obviously not the case. But now I want you guys to visualize what would happen if you started doing your own research. You would get a new outlook on the government, on America, on life. That sounds dramatic, but it would really help you out. I used to be one to watch CNN all the time, take everything they said as fact. And then I got into conspiracy theories, and it started making me think critically, look at both sides of the argument, side I never even heard of. And the only downside of doing this, well, it might make you paranoid. When I first started reading about conspiracy theories, why they want gun control, things like this, it scared the crap out of me. But life is scary. But that brings me, I'm going to show you my visual aid now. I can't do it here. My monitor is getting repaired, so here we go. Now here is a graph with information that you would not see on the mainstream media because it doesn't play along with their agenda. From 1993 to 2011, it's the most recent study I could find from the Bureau of Justice Statistics. It shows just how sharply the firearm incidents, gun crime, things like that have declined from 1 million a year, over 1 million a year, down to just 400,000. Now, it did go up a little bit from 2010 to 2011, but that's half, more than half of the amount of incidents, and we're led to believe that it's getting worse. But that, like I said, it's just because of the access to the internet. Information travels quicker, things like that. So, in conclusion, gun control is not an important issue. It's not nearly as important as the mainstream media makes it out to be. I've cited the facts that contradict what they say, and I leave you with this challenge. I already said do research everything on your own from now on, but on the issue of gun control, because that's what this speech is about, really research that and compare it with what the mainstream media has said and how much they blew it out of proportion in order to push their agenda. I hope you enjoyed this speech, and I'm sorry about the visual aid nonsense.